All right, we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off. It's about 11:33. I do want to just say thank you for spending some time with us over your lunch hour. I'm Tom Reiber. I'm Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at Protex Central. As a housekeeping item, I would ask that you please mute your microphones during the session. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to go ahead and submit them via chat or hold them to the end of the presentation. Our subject matter experts anticipate the presentation taking roughly about 50 to 60 minutes. That'll leave us plenty of time to field questions as we kind of complete things over. That being said, I'd like to introduce our presenters today. We'll go ahead and we'll start with Mr. Timothy Carmen. Tim has worked in the fire protection industry since 1985. He has specialized for the past 24 years in special hazards, suppression systems, including clean agents, CO2, dry chemical, detection and control systems. He has held roles in product management, sales, engineering, business development. He is currently the National Sales Manager for Janus Fire Systems and is the past president of both the Fire Suppression Systems Association and the Cascade chapter of the Society of Fire Protection Engineers. Tim is a registered fire protection engineer in the state of Oregon and resides in Portland. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thanks, Tom.
You got it. You got it. We'd also like to introduce Shawn Mullen. Shawn is a member of the fire, has been a member of the fire protection community for over 39 years. Shawn serves as Protex Central's president and chief energy officer. He's a graduate of Drake University and holds several designations, level 4 and fire alarm subfield, and level 3 special hazards for NICET. Shawn also serves as the principal member of the NFPA 770 Technical Committee on Hybrid Water Mist Inert Gas Fire Extinguishing Systems and remains active in various industry associations, including the past president of Fire Suppression Systems Association and continued membership with the National Fire Equipment Distributors Association, as well as the National Fire Protection Association. Shawn is a subject matter expert on the Joint Building and Fire Code Advisory Board for Capital Crossroads Initiative in Central Iowa. He's previously served a 10-year appointment on the Iowa State Fire Marshal's Fire Systems Contractors Advisory Board, which instituted new licensing regulations for fire protection contractors. Gentlemen, thank you for jumping on today. Tim, the floor is yours. Go ahead and take it away.
Excellent. Thank you again, Tom. Good morning, everyone. I am Tim Carmen. I'm with Janus Fire Systems, coming to you from Portland, Oregon, where I live. My office is right outside of Chicago in Crown Point, Indiana. I get there occasionally. This morning, the morning for me, I think it's still morning for everybody there. We're going to talk a little bit about the current situation with clean agent fire suppression agents and some changes that have happened recently in the industry that have impacted the availability and the use of clean agents to some extent, and just trying to answer some questions and get some good information out to you folks. So I'm going to share my screen here. And hopefully it's going to come up as shared here. There we go. Okay, Tom, everybody see that okay? I see you nod. Okay. So specifically what I'd like to talk about for the next 35, 40 minutes is the change in our industry from what everyone referred to as Novec 1230, which is to FK 5112, and potential impacts to those agents from environmental concerns that probably a lot of folks on this call have heard about in the periphery, and I want to make sure we get some good information out there. A caveat to my presentation is I work for Janus Fire Systems, and we're a commercial producer of clean agent fire suppression systems that use these clean agents as fire extinguishing agents in systems that we provide. Because of that, I have a commercial interest in what we're talking about today, so I'm going to be very careful to present to you factual information that I've been able to glean from multiple third parties and sources, and point you in the direction of being able to do some of your own research and have some resources to get some questions answered. So we're going to talk a little bit about halocarbon clean agents that are defined in NFPA 2001. We're going to talk specifically about FK 5112, which some of you may have known as Novec 1230 in the past. Novec 1230 was a brand name for FK 5112. We're going to talk a little bit about what FK 5112 is, how the use of it has been influenced by environmental factors. And we're going to talk about the commercial and regulatory future of FK 5112. And then, as Tom mentioned, we'll have some time for questions at the end. One of the I mentioned earlier, I want to use third party and independent information in giving you some guidance and information today. One of my sources for that information is the Fire Suppression Systems Association. Both Shawn and I are past presidents of this organization. This is our industry trade organization in the special hazards fire suppression industry. And the FSSA is a leader in technical thought and in innovation and information about the special hazards fire suppression industry. We have a very active technical committee. We produce technical publications. The FSSA is very active at the NFPA and other regulatory organizations like the EPA. The FSSA, in reaction to the changes going on in the clean agent industry, have established a website page and a task force to keep track of regulatory actions that are impacting our industry. And throughout my presentation, I've got some hot links here that I will make available to everyone so that you can go look at this information yourself. The FSSA is keeping an updated page on how regulatory action is impacting clean agent fire suppression. And most of the information I'm going to share with you today comes from the work that the FSSA has either done or gathered themselves. Just a little bit of history. I've been around this industry long enough to remember when we were installing halon systems. Bromo-trifluoromethane. Halon was developed in the 1950s as a joint venture between the Army and DuPont. Halon was an extremely effective total flooding halocarbon-based clean agent. Unfortunately, halon was identified, or perhaps fortunately, it was identified as an ozone-depleting substance in the mid-1980s, and the production of halon was ceased in January of 1994. There are still a lot of halon systems out there. There's nothing wrong with owning and operating a halon system. They're becoming more and more difficult to keep maintained and updated because buying new agent or new equipment has become just very difficult to do. But halon is still out there. And a little bit of a overall note that I'll make about this whole presentation is none of the clean agents that we have ever installed in our industry have been outlawed, quote, outlawed. Take that out. You can't even have that anymore. Most of the agents, as time has progressed, have been regulated to some extent, and new installations or new manufacture of agent has been regulated either by the government or because they've just made it too expensive to manufacture. Halon is one of those. Still a lot of halon out there. When halon was no longer available to us for a new agent, The industry pretty quickly pivoted to hydrofluorocarbon agents. There's an agent out there, HFC 227EA, that everybody probably knows as FM200. It was a fairly rapid replacement for halon, effective agent, used throughout the world. There's still a lot of FM200 out there, but the HFCs were identified as global warming agents. They have a very long atmospheric lifetime. The industry was always looking for a better solution than the HFCs as more and more pressure was put on the market about long atmospheric lifetimes. HFCs right now new production of HFCs are being phased down in the US as a result of the AIM Act that was passed in 2020. The industry, even though there's nothing illegal about using HFC 227EA or the other HFCs, because of the phase down in manufacture and because we had a equivalent or better solution available, there's very little, if any, FM200 or the other HFCs being sold in new systems today. The alternative that we had starting in the early 2000s was FK5112, which is not a hydrofluorocarbon. It's a fluorinated ketone. It was developed by 3M, and they marketed it as Novec 1230 for many years. We've been selling more and more Novec 1230 and less FM200 for several years now, as the environmental footprint of FK5112 is superior to the HFCs. It's not an ozone depleting agent, has a very short atmospheric lifetime, and this has become the industry standard. The latest wrinkle that's been put in the commercial side of selling clean agent fire suppression systems is that in December of 2022, 3M, who produced Novec 1230, the trade name for FK5112, decided it was going to exit its entire fluorinated portfolio that contained any kind of PFAS. And this was a corporate decision by 3M that impacted a very, very broad range of their product line, of which Novec 1230 was a very small piece, but a very large piece to those of us in the fire suppression business. This was not a regulatory driven decision. It was a business decision that 3M made. And so as of January 1st of 2023, we were forced to look for alternate manufacturers of FK5112. Fortunately for the industry, there are multiple manufacturers of UL-FM listed FK5112 available to us to purchase agent from to put in our systems. It's important to note that there's no federal regulatory action prohibiting or limiting the use of this agent anywhere. Another hot link here is to the EPA SNAP list. This is the official list from the EPA of approved substitutes that goes all the way back to when halon was taken off the market. And FK5112 resides on that list. And if you were to link, you could see that FK5112 resides on the list of approved substitutes for what was halon fire suppression. So the overriding issue here is PFAS, and everybody's heard about PFAS. Everybody's watched the news. Everybody watches late night TV and sees all the ads from class action lawsuits about foam and PFAS, and it's a very broad term, and it's a very broad issue. PFASs are per or polyfluoroalkyl substances. They are a chemical family that cover many, many types of materials. Thousands of chemicals out there are PFASs. PFASs are found in pharmaceuticals. They're found in clothing. They're a very broad family of chemicals. They're solids, liquids, or gases. where we start to make some differentiation is there are different kinds of PFAS which the EPA has specifically targeted as being problematic. One of those, and this is what you hear a lot about, is the PFAS, which is in AFFF firefighting foam. Those particular PFASs contain two specific chemicals, PFOS and PFOA, that the EPA has identified as problematic. And the way they identified it as problematic is PFAS chemicals that are considered PBT, which is persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic. Meaning, if these chemicals get in groundwater, they stay in the groundwater. If they are ingested, they bioaccumulate. And at certain levels, they become toxic. So as recently as April of 2024, the EPA has finalized a critical rule to designate two of those PFAS chemicals, PFOA and PFOS, as hazardous substances. And they have created an action item on their website that says, out of all the PFAS chemical family, of which there's hundreds, we have identified these two as being problematic because they are persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic. The good news for our industry, for the total flooding clean agent industry, is the PFAS that are in the agents we use, like FK5112, are not considered persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic. They do not partition to groundwater. In fact, they're water averse. They're gases, and they break down over time in the atmosphere. So they are not persistent, bioaccumulative, or toxic, and therefore the EPA has not listed them as such. The EPA very clearly differentiates between different types of PFAS compounds. They've taken a measured approach and they've identified at least 180 specific PFASs on what they call its toxic release inventory list. And again, at the bottom of this page, there's a hot link to that toxic released inventory list. If they look at a PFAS and decide that it has significant health effects, if it's a carcinogen, if it has serious or irreversible reproductive dysfunctions, if it is persistent in the environment, is toxic, or has a tendency to bioaccumulate in the environment, then the EPA is taking that PFAS and putting it on their list of toxic released inventory list. And this list is a living document. It's changing as they look at more and more things. It's important, if you're interested in knowing how the EPA is addressing these PFASs, to frequently review that list. And that list, again, on this hot link, takes you to the chemicals that are on that list. FK5112, per the EPA, does not meet any of those criteria, so it's not on the TRI list. The TRI list requires some very specific handling and use of those particular chemicals, whereas other PFAS that are not on that TRI list are treated like any other chemical with regard to the EPA. There's rules, there's regulations, but there's no ban on using it, and no concern of its persistence or bioaccumulative effects or toxicity. So this TRI list is really important, and it's looked at frequently by people in our industry, and that's the resource. Regardless of what you see in the marketing, the commercial side of our business, the important thing is, what is the EPA saying about these? You'll see a lot of, again, late night TV stuff and information on the internet that talks about states banning PFAS, which, when you look into the facts of what PFAS are, is kind of a unachievable goal. You'd have to scrap an awful lot of things that we use in our daily lives to ban PFAS. What is happening is the EPA is looking at PFAS chemicals and identifying the ones that are harmful and adding them to a list like this and saying, we are going to regulate these. And we are going to look at all the other hundreds and thousands of PFAS chemicals that are being used, and we're going to differentiate between the ones that need to be regulated because they're there forever and they're harmful, and the ones that are not. So again, graphically, it's important to understand that not all PFAS is created equal, and that's not me or the manufacturers of these chemicals saying that. That's the EPA saying that. The EPA differentiates between what we refer to as PBT and non-PBT PFAS chemicals, persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic. The agents that we use, FK5112, is not persistent. It breaks down in the atmosphere to naturally occurring chemicals in 5 days or less. FK5112 breaks down photochemically in the atmosphere, so it is exposed to sunlight. It breaks down. So once an FK5112 system discharges as a gas, and that gas becomes part of the atmosphere, it breaks down photochemically in 5 days, and it's not FK5112 anymore. It does not bioaccumulate. It is non-toxic. Everything's toxic at a certain level. Water is toxic at a certain level. The design concentrations that we use FK5112 at are at less than half of its lowest identified toxicity limit. So the agent itself is not going to be discharged into the atmosphere at a toxic concentration. And then, of course, as it dissipates in the atmosphere, its concentration becomes even less. So we are confident as an industry, and the EPA has also expressed that FK5112, which is the agent that we are using, falls in the non-PBT category. And because of that, it has not been identified on any list by the EPA as a PFAS that needs to be specially regulated. So that's where we are today as far as the use and the regulatory environment of FK5112, which used to be Novec 1230. And going forward, the FSSA and individual manufacturers like ourselves are watching this carefully to see if new evidence comes around. Is there going to be a magic drop-in solution developed by a chemical company tomorrow to replace FK5112? It's very unlikely. It's a huge investment. Every new agent they come out with is a little bit less effective than the one before to try and solve issues. Right now, we're comfortable as an industry that we have an agent that is effective, life safe, and environmentally as clean as you're going to get with clean agent fire suppression agents. So what's the future look like? FK5112, again, originally called Novec 1230 by DuPont, is manufactured by multiple chemical manufacturers. There are effectively 3, maybe 4, and those manufacturers have all gone to UL and FM, who are our approving agencies with regard to NFPA 2001 type of applications. And they have UL and FM listing. As a company, I can let you know that we are purchasing FK5112 from more than one of these manufacturers. And one of the reasons that we can do that is once we are assured that they have a UL FM approved product, FK5112 that comes from one manufacturer is the same product that comes from the other manufacturers. There is a lot of branding going on in the industry. There are a lot of brokers, middlemen, I'll call them, who are selling agent that is being produced by these three primary manufacturers, maybe four. I've heard that there might be a fourth manufacturer. Um, and a lot of folks have applied branding names to them. You know, Novec 1230 was a 3M brand. That's not available. That's their trademark. So you may see FK5112 described by some other closely associated brand name. Um, we as a manufacturer decided that that was kind of redundant. We call it FK5112 because that's what NFPA 2001 calls it. And there is no difference between FK5112 manufactured, purchased, sold by me or anybody else. It's all the same stuff. Um, so there's a little bit of marketing confusion out there that you may run into, but just be aware that the molecule is the molecule, and the molecule is recognized by NFPA, UL, FM, and the EPA as FK5112. There is a little bit of confusion still because all of the manufacturers of this agent and the manufacturers of the systems like ourselves, we had to go back to UL and FM and get our systems reapproved with a new manufacturer of the same agent. Some of that is just because I think they like to make us do more testing. And there's still a little bit of confusion about design concentrations above 480 volts for a Class C fire, primarily because the testing that was done on that was owned by 3M, and 3M is no longer a manufacturer that we're buying from. So there's still a little bit of confusion in the marketplace about design concentrations. If you have a Class C fire above 480 volts that remains energized after the discharge, there's some disagreement about what the design concentration should be. Factory Mutual says 10%, by the way. They're the only ones that have absolutely put their finger on it and said, we've done testing, it's 10%. So that's what we use. That potentially could change over time. Recharge compatibility with existing Novec 1230 systems is, there's still a little bit of confusion about that. Again, it's the exact same molecule that you're putting back in the cylinder. There's some trademark issues that are being addressed there, that it has nothing to do with the quality or the type of molecule you're putting back in the cylinder. It has to do with trademark issues. So there's still you can put the new, if you will, FK5112 right back in the same cylinder that yesterday contained Novec 1230, and it will do the exact same job. But there are some trademark issues that we as manufacturers are having to deal with. If it says Novec 1230 on the cylinder, it's not Novec 1230 going back in there. So if you run across those situations, all the vendors of these agents can help you work through that. So to kind of wrap up what I wanted to tell everybody, again, I've tried to show you information that comes from third independent parties. It's information that we follow as both as a manufacturer of systems and as organizations like the FSSA to try and make sure we've got the facts in front of us and the facts in front of the industry and our customers. You need to understand the difference between PFASs. The PFAS in foams that you hear a lot about that contain PFAS and PFOA partition to water. Those chemicals go into the water supply, they stay in the water supply. The PFAS clean agents, which are gases, partition to the atmosphere, not to water. They're water repellent. And once they do partition to the atmosphere, they break down. They are not persistent, bioaccumulative, or toxic in the concentrations we're using. And that's the criteria the EPA uses to place them on a restricted chemical list, which they refer to as the TRI. So be aware of this. And again, hopefully I've provided you with enough information and links to go research some of this yourself if the questions come up. We're moving ahead as an industry with new vendors for our FK5112. And we've seen very little, if any, interruption in the marketplace because these vendors have stepped in and are providing us with the same thing that we've been using for years under a different brand name. So Tom, with that, I'll shut up for a while and I'll be available to answer questions as we move on.
Thank you, Tim. A lot of really good information there. Shawn, I'll let you go ahead and take the floor, and then we'll kind of open it up for everybody to ask any questions they may have at the conclusion of your presentation.
Great. Well, thank you, Tom. And Tim, thank you. Very good information. I hope that all of you were able to take away a little bit more about that. I wanted to spend just a few moments here and share out some information regarding a relationship that Protex Central has with the NOx company, and specifically some of the services that are available to jurisdictions through our association with them as a trusted partner. And so this has nothing to do with PFAS. It has nothing to do with PFOA or PFAS, but it has everything to do with firefighter safety as well as rapid access into buildings along the way. So I wanted to share out just a couple of key factors related to our participation with NOx. They have a wonderful, very close relationship with agencies across the country, and they do a very good job of that. Our role as a trusted partner is simply to support those local agencies where necessary. And so one of the things that we have in our inventory are the basic 3200 series boxes for most of the larger jurisdictions. And this is a courtesy type of thing where many times you can imagine contractors forget the box, and the day of or the day before the final walkthrough for certificate of occupancy, the local fire inspector comes through and says, "Where's the box?" And they're panicking. And so we've been able to mitigate that panic sometimes with the contractors and to be able to support them. We have access to the entirety of the boxes, but as an inventory control issue, we try to keep a basic inventory per jurisdiction for most of those larger jurisdictions. We also can provide factory authorized installation and support services, and we have provided these services in a couple of different ways. We provided them to contractors who don't necessarily want to have to deal with it. We've also provided retrofit services for facilities that did not previously have a NOx box but wanted one. We've provided those services. And we have also worked with several educational occupancies to provide mass deployment of NOx boxes across their campus. And so we've worked with both K-12 school districts in that regard, but also higher education. So we can facilitate those services and do it rather quickly if one of those campuses or facilities wants to have an immediate implementation of that particular program. One of the more interesting things that we've been able to work with and support as local jurisdictions consider moving to the e-key, the electronic key platform of the NOx company's rapid access portfolio, we have consulted with and worked with local jurisdictions in coordinating a mass conversion over from the conventional mechanical keyway to the electronic keyway for the E-key. And we have mapped out some best practices of how we would go about dividing up a jurisdiction and attacking, so to speak, those particular facilities within a geographical area one day and get those taken care of, and the next day move on to a different part of the jurisdiction to knock those boxes out. But this has been really a facilitation opportunity, because in many cases, local jurisdictions just don't have the manpower or time or resources to go around and switch out those mechanical keyways to the E-keyway. And so we've been able to come alongside of them and support them with the coordination as well as those installation services. I mentioned that we have had a couple of different opportunities to work with educational occupancies in the deployment of Knox boxes across school districts or even across entire campuses. And what we've also worked with is the cross-agency support, meaning that in some instances we can provide dual master keys, where a sheriff's department or a law enforcement agency has a key to that particular box, as well as the fire department having that capability. And in the world that we live in today, it's unfortunate that the need to have rapid access to these facilities is increasing. And there are any number of examples of recent tragedies where the ability to gain access rapidly as well as tactically, it was hindered because they couldn't find the keys. They didn't know where the keys were. And so, unfortunately, it has raised tremendous awareness, especially with these educational occupancies, that the need to place these Knox boxes strategically around the building at points of interest or entrance, and also making sure that different jurisdictions have access to that. So whichever agency is tasked to respond first, they don't have to wait for the fire department, for example, to show up. And so we have been promoting cross-agency cooperation and awareness of these types of solutions. And again, this is just a part of the overall strategy for addressing these types of unfortunate incidences in educational occupancies. But it's one that the particular simplicity of the Knox boxes really is a benefit should one of those tragic things happen to happen. We do know of instances where tragedies have been averted because of the tactical advantage of law enforcement being able to access a facility from not the main door, but from one of the end hallway doors or specific other entrances, and have gained tactical advantage to de-escalate situations that could have easily gotten out of hand. So again, it's the times that we live in, but just know that cross-agency support is one of the things that we are capable of doing. We want to help, we want to support, and certainly can come alongside either the folks in the fire jurisdictions or the law enforcement jurisdictions, and talk about how we can share that rapid access to those boxes. Finally, one of the more interesting products of Knox is their home box. This is a very small platform box that can be mounted hung over a door, or actually attached to a home. It's designed to hold only one thing, and that's the key to the front door. But what we're finding across the country is that home boxes are really becoming a valuable response time saver to medical emergency calls. And in many cases, our aging population, again, that's the times that we live in, our aging population wants to feel safe. And yes, and as they should. So they are very diligent about locking their doors. Well, unfortunately, as the old ad used to say, "Help me, I've fallen and I can't get up." They can place the call to 911 and get the first responders to show up, but then the first responders have difficulty gaining access to the home. And this is where home boxes can become very valuable. And we have worked with jurisdictions to provide a fixed number of home boxes that they can place with individuals who may access those medical services more frequently than others. In one case, but also to create awareness that they know how and where to access a home should that be there. One of the other aspects that Protex has been available to help participate in is fundraising assistance. There are a couple of jurisdictions where we have partnered with local service clubs to create fundraising opportunities to help defray the cost of these home boxes for the jurisdictions, and that has been a win-win. It's helped create awareness in the local community of the need and availability of these particular products, but it's also then unburdened the local agency from having to find the monies or apply for the grants to fund a fleet of home boxes. So with these particular elements of support to our friends in these different jurisdictions and agencies, just know that we're available across the states of Iowa and Nebraska to support these particular efforts. And if there's anything else that we can help with in working with the Knox company, we're certainly willing to do that. I always like to just double check and make sure that we know that the need and requirement for rapid access is code driven. And so there are a little chart here of references from NFPA 1, the fire code from NFPA, and the products along the left-hand vertical give you some indication of those products that comply with the particular code references, both out of NFPA, International Fire Code, International Building Code, and interestingly enough, some jurisdictions do adopt the International Existing Building Code, where the references for FDC, fire department caps, are referenced out there as well. These are longstanding references for the need for rapid access. I think one of the value adds from the Knox perspective, because Knox is not the only manufacturer of lock boxes. There are a couple of other manufacturers that do manufacture lock boxes and have participation from jurisdictions. But one of the value adds is Knox is the only lockbox that meets the UL listing for secured lockboxes. And so it's a value add to the agency as well as a value add to those users who actually put them on their buildings. As I said, Knox has a variety of different products: perimeter access, building access, even interior access. And one of the more interesting applications that we're finding today, fire departments are realizing that the electric vehicle charging stations are becoming more prevalent in their jurisdictions, and they're needing to have a better source of killing the power to one of those units should they get away from them. And so this is where the Knox remote power box can really come into play. And I'm sure that we'll start seeing more and more deployment of EV charging stations along the way, but know that Knox has a UL listed remote powered disconnect box that is often deployed in those areas, as well as some of the perimeter access serves as security for buildings under construction. Many construction sites, have a chain link fence around the perimeter, and having a NOx padlock or shackle that is keyed to that jurisdiction's master does allow for faster response in the event that something goes bad at the construction site. So another idea of looking at what we call the ecosystem of the NOx products, but certainly one of value over the entire portfolio. So I've been able to share out a couple of ideas, a couple of support things for our friends in these different jurisdictions. And just know that it's our goal to be of support to the program, and that if along the way we can be of any help to you and your agency, feel free to reach out to us. We're always here, happy to help, and look forward to, again, continuing our partnership with the NOx company and with all of the wonderful jurisdictions that do such a great job in responding to the needs of our community. So Tom, I'll put it there for now, and just simply say that we have the aspect of ending my particular portion of the presentation, and certainly open it up to any questions, either for Tim's presentation or mine.
Yeah, thank you, Shawn. Yeah, and like Shawn said, floor is open. We'll leave it open here for another minute or so, and we would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Tom, one of the things that occurred to me is I'll be happy to provide you with all those EPA links that are in my presentation. I could put it on a single page document that if anybody wants to go explore some of that information themselves, they can go right to the horse's mouth, so to speak. And then, of course, as Shawn mentioned, always happy and available to answer questions or have further conversation on this. And again, we're not really treating this as a commercial enterprise in this case. We're trying to make sure that the right information gets out to the industry, and more importantly to the end users and AHJs.
Yeah, and Tim, just to kind of follow along with that, to our friends who are participating, know that we are recording today's presentation, and Tom will share that with you in a post presentation email follow-up, so that if you or your associates were not able to attend today or wanted to go back and visit something along the way, the recording will certainly be available to you. And of course, we're always happy to answer questions along the way. I think one of the benefits of an association with a company like Janus is Protex has access to all of their technical expertise, but together, both as a manufacturer and as a distributor, we feel very passionately about the advancement of our industry. And so, as you know, both Tim and I have served the Fire Suppression Systems Association in leadership positions because we both care deeply about the advancement of the industry and the importance that it has in the overall mix of fire protection options. The clean agent piece isn't for everybody. It's not for every application. We didn't say that it was, but where it is deployed and where it is applied, it's saving lives and property and uptime in many cases for some of those data centers that we protect over time.
Couldn't agree more, Shawn. Thank you. Tim, thank you for participating, and thank you for everybody that took their time out of their day to learn a little bit about NFPA 2001 and the PFAS, as well as the NOx Trusted Partnership. Like Shawn said, I will follow up with everybody via email that gives everybody the technical links that Tim was referring to, as well as just a thank you note for attending today's session. Appreciate everybody's time. I hope you all have a very good rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.